Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome. I'm Shaylin Stimson, Director of Events and Strategic Partnerships at Tech Manitoba. Welcome to today's Tech Mashup. Today we're talking about cut the noise, build a digital marketing funnel that actually works. Before we begin, Tech Manitoba acknowledges that we are gathered on Treaty 1 territory, the traditional lands of the Anishinaabe, Cree, Oji-Cree, Dakota, and Dene peoples, and the homeland of the Red River Métis. We also acknowledge Shoal Lake First Nation, whose water has sustained Winnipeg for generations, and we recognize the vital connection between land, water, and community. At Tech Manitoba, we're committed to fostering respectful and inclusive spaces within the tech industry. We recognize the importance of Indigenous knowledge, creativity, and contributions in shaping innovation. As we work to advance technology and digital growth, we remain dedicated to building relationships and partnerships grounded in respect for Indigenous sovereignty, knowledge sharing, and collaboration. We are grateful to live, learn, and work on these lands, and we're committed to working towards a future that respects the histories and contributions of Indigenous peoples in Manitoba and across Canada. Before we get started with today's event, I want to quickly mention MB Tech Week. So it is a week-long celebration of tech in our province, hosted by Tech Manitoba. It runs February 22nd to February 28th. Currently, we have over 50 events on the calendar, so there's a little bit of something for everyone. Some are in person, some are virtual, some are in Winnipeg. We also have some Morden and Winkler locations this year. And there's everything from networking events to educational webinars to panel discussions covering a wide range of topics too. So everything from like AI to cybersecurity, something for everyone. And then we're wrapping up the week with a big celebration too at the Techapalooza. So just to highlight a few, our speaker today, she's hosting an event called Co-op Mode, Create a Video Game with the Power of Play. We also have virtual events from Neovation, Building the Corporate Brain. Glitch Secure is doing the hidden costs of AI. Emily is hosting a webinar on the lowdown of spray drones. For networking specifically, Manitoba Women in Tech is hosting Breaking the Myths, Holding Winnipeg Back discussion, Holding Women Back. Northforge has the Dare Innovation Awards. Creative Mornings is featuring UPro Soccer. If you're more of a founder or entrepreneur, there's also a Founders Coffee meetup at launch. The World Trade Center is doing a discussion on being US market ready at speed. And Stu Clark Center is hosting a webinar on funding smart. So like I said, super big range. Tech Manitoba is hosting Ignition, which is the official kickoff party to MB Tech Week. So that is happening Monday night from 7 p.m. to 11 p.m. This event tickets used to be $300. We've scaled it back this year. It's only $20 for a ticket. That includes one complimentary drink, so it's basically free. So 7 to 11 at the local Ungary right downtown, and we're going to be celebrating everything that's coming up in Tech Week. So now it's my pleasure to introduce today's speaker, Amy Q. Cooper, founder and CEO of Studio Q Designs. She's a Canadian women-owned design and technology agency. Studio Q drives brand awareness and growth for organizations across Canada through branding, websites, apps, and marketing. Amy and her team seek to build bright futures by amplifying what makes us human, fostering authentic connections, and transforming how we experience the digital world. Please join me in welcoming Amy.
Amazing. Thank you so much. It's so great to be here today. I appreciate everyone joining today this afternoon. My name is Amy, as Shaylin mentioned, and I'm very excited to be chatting with you today. So we'll get started here. So before I get into a presentation, I actually would love to hear from all of you. So I have just 3 questions. I promise it's not super long here, but just to join and get a better understanding of where you're at when it comes to your marketing. So I do have a presentation today to talk about, the gaps that people often have when they're talking about marketing and when they're developing their plans, whether for themselves as an individual or a small business or, leading a team in a marketing department. But in our group today here, I really want to focus on talking about what matters the most and what you're struggling with the most or have questions about. And so this will give a good understanding about that. So hopefully everyone's got their phones out, and I'm going to start the first one here. Alrighty, so this one is, oh, I see 0 people. Is that maybe, were people not able to join? I don't know, Shaylin, are you able to see if you were, oh, 1 participant is typing, okay. Promising. So in one word, how would you describe your current marketing efforts? So this could be something that you're trying to currently focus on, whether an end goal, or it could be a feeling or emotion that you're feeling if you're kind of frustrated with some of the marketing efforts that have been going on. A lot of people, I'm going to guess, are, feeling scattered, maybe feelings of overwhelmed. Yeah. And marketing too can come from anything specific like social media, but it also can come from, your sales. How are you doing when it comes to promoting yourself or your new products or your business that you're working on? So exploring and excited. Okay, that's very positive. I'm glad to see some people are maybe feeling optimistic. I'm hoping that by the end of today's presentation, you'll feel a little bit more, at least confident, and feeling like you have a path forward. So it's good here. Go to the next one. So here, this is asking what marketing tactics are you currently using? So if you are an individual, it could just be what platforms you're comfortable with using at the moment if you're not using it necessarily for marketing. But if you are working on marketing projects right now, what have you decided to explore, spend some time on? When it comes to kind of promoting yourself or your business. So got a mix of answers here. So we do have some people that are maybe not quite ready or at a point where they're looking to start their marketing. We got a few people with influencers, but a lot of social media, email or text, which is really interesting. So there's your newsletters, which are really popular. And then in-person networking is always good to see as well. That's a huge part of marketing, especially when you first start. So got a few in there with paid ads, Google ads, stuff like that. That typically requires a little bit more technical experience to get that set up. So that makes sense. And we will talk about that today and how you can get started with something like that if you're interested. And my last question here. So when it comes to marketing, what do you feel is your biggest challenge? So that might kind of echo from your word response in the beginning. But when we talk about marketing, there's an end goal that is outside of just how many followers you have or how many likes you get, how many people click on your newsletter. There's typically some sort of action or result that you're trying to get out of that. So growing your audience makes a lot of sense, who you're going to be speaking to. Sales is always a big thing. I think everyone always wants to increase their sales. Everything, 100% trust and credibility. Yeah, returning customers. It's always interesting to see the returning customers sit a little bit lower because in a lot of cases, actually focusing marketing efforts on your current customers can actually affect a lot of the other components like generating sales, growing your audience. So we'll also talk about that a lot more today. Alrighty, okay, that gives me a good basis for where we're starting today. And then I'm going to jump into our presentation. Alrighty, so in today's tech mashup, we're talking about marketing. We're going to talk about some of the strategies that you can use, but also what the best ways are to actually put them all together. So I'm just going to adjust this here. I want to make sure you can see the full presentation here. Alrighty. So I'm going to talk a little bit about myself and also marketing in general. We'll kick things off with that. But the most important thing here is the context. So why does marketing actually exist? Why does it matter? Why is it in an entire department in a business? And why does it kind of seem to keep us up at night? And then taking that context, building a deeper understanding on, what does it look like to actually do marketing? It's not just posting on social media. How we can apply that. So open to having some people maybe chime in about their current marketing struggles or goals that they have when it comes to marketing. And I'll walk through kind of how we can take that context and understanding and build out a plan. And then going forward, what does that leave us with now and where can we take that going forward? So introduction, so myself. So if I haven't met you before or you haven't heard of Studio Q, Studio Q Designs is a design and technology agency. As Shaylin mentioned, it's a woman-owned company, and we primarily focus on projects like branding, app design development, websites, and of course, marketing. Most of our organizations that we work with are often looking for some sort of growth. So that could be launching a new product, a new business, such as startups, and it can also be trying to reach a new target audience or demographic as well. So overall, we're definitely living in the world of, how can we move forward and think about the future for our company. And in this photo here, I've got Mikhail on my left and Katie on my right looking at the image, and they are also the co-owners of Studio Q, and I get to work with them every day. So for this part here, I'd love to hear in the chat, I'm not sure if people can unmute themselves, but just share, have you ever purchased the more expensive option and why? So personally, I have definitely purchased the more expensive option many times. And there's a lot of reasons for this type of decision. So that might be related to things like the brand. So it could be just the brand you have the preference for. There's also things like status, as well as actual more maybe tangible reasons like the quality, feeling like there's a better customer service or product guarantee, as well as maybe feeling like overall, just in comparison to everything else, is just going to be, a better experience. And we've got, quality for sure. Brand influence, especially if you are interested in any sort of particular individuals. Again, one of the questions talked about influencer marketing and product placement, stuff like that. That can be a huge reason as well. So there's a lot of different reasons. And the reason why I kind of start with this question is because it just goes to show right away that marketing plays a huge role in our decision making. And it's going to have an enormous effect on whether or not people are going to feel convinced that you're the option to buy. So this is kind of my main point that I want to talk about today, which is that people are captivated by what you do, but they will stay because of who you are. So a lot of times in marketing, we talk about things like becoming, kind of like your 15 minutes of fame or your trending content, things that go viral, initial immediate growth. I'm thinking of like the Krispy Kreme that opened in Winnipeg that had lineups around the block. There's a lot of nuances that can attract people very easily right away, but it is actually who you are that is going to make people continue to stay, continue to purchase your products, and build that brand loyalty. So that's really the part that I want to focus on today as we go through, is not just the initial attention grabbing, but how do you hold on to them and how do you actually build a relationship? Because it's very time consuming and tiring to go through and continuously attract new people all the time. So you want to build that audience organically and really have that kind of compound over time. So for context, this is more often than not where people feel like they have problems when it comes to their marketing. So marketing feels like a losing game for a lot of people, whether it comes to time spent, money spent, anything like that. And it's a lot of feelings around having too many platforms to manage, chasing trends, and then feeling like it's too late to do a trend and feeling irrelevant. A lot of spending, trying to feel like if you throw, more money at Google, you're going to eventually get those sales, but it's just not true. And having unmanaged conversion rates is what we call that. A big part as well is having little differentiation from competitors. So sometimes we'll follow marketing strategies that other people are doing. And so that feels like it's going to work because it's working for them. But because of that little differentiation, we just kind of become background noise. And of course, the other part too is in today's world, a lot of marketing is related to technology. And so that opens up a whole other can of worms for skills and abilities and programs that we have to pay for. And that can sometimes hold us back as well. There's always ads for, purchasing video editing or purchasing Canva and so on and so forth. And it kind of all adds up and it leaves a lot of people feeling like they're not sure what to do with that. So I'm going to, based on some of the questions, assume that some people are definitely feeling this way when it comes to how they're feeling about their marketing. So even though there's a long list of different reasons we feel like marketing isn't working, a lot of it comes down to no strategy being created for the actual execution that's going on. So marketing without strategy is just noise with a budget. And that is definitely our perspective when it comes to how we're deciding what recommendations we would make for businesses that we work with. And having this type of mentality really allows you to take a step back and think about your end goal for actually where you're aiming that target. What kind of tracking are you actually doing to see if you're even meeting that, and what is actually going to be worthwhile for your time, because it's definitely not everything. My recommendation is definitely not to do everything at once. So this is probably the part of marketing that most people don't see. And the reason for that is because most of us are just experiencing marketing as a consumer. And as an end person that is on the receiving side of things, we're being sold to. If you have any sort of social media platform, you watch the news or television or anything on TV with ads, you have definitely likely been at the end of this buyer journey of trying to become that, loyal customer to them. And this is really the backbone and foundation for how you can actually build a marketing strategy. And this buyer journey goes through essentially the thinking process or thought process or flow that people follow from learning about you, so your discovery phase, all the way to the end of being a regular repeat or a customer that maybe promotes and advocates for you. And that's obviously the end goal in a lot of cases. That's the most ideal. So looking at this buyer journey, the reason why we care about it so much is because all the different marketing tactics that we've talked about and in that survey of what you've maybe been trying all fall into these different parts of the buyer journey. And depending on what your goal is, you will want to do different items to focus on different areas of the buyer journey. Now, if you have an endless budget and you maybe have a huge team, you are probably 100% going to be focusing on all these areas. But I'm going to take a wild guess that we're probably not all in that boat. And so I really want to take a look at how we can figure out where we fall into these areas and then what kind of tactics would follow suit best for those goals. So our discovery phase here, so this is how people know who you are and what you do, and where are they actually finding you. So in this phase here, this is maybe more relevant if you are somebody who's just kind of starting out, you're starting a new business or launching a new product. Your consideration phase is thinking about things like, how do you appear credible and trustworthy to people? If you purchased anything online, you've probably seen it online and opened up another 2 or 3 tabs to try and triple check if this is a legitimate website or, a good quality product. How are people, deciding if this is something worth considering? And then your decision phase. So how do you actually compare when they're looking at competitors? They're making that kind of crossover into making that purchase. What is going to make them actually choose you? And that kind of goes back to some of our points around why people will even spend more on higher priced products when there's even more affordable options that might achieve the same thing. The last one here is the loyalty. And again, I kind of mentioned earlier that this is one that a lot of people forget about. When we talk about sales, it's great to obviously get new sales and grow and have new clients that come in. But a lot of people actually neglect nurturing their existing audience or their clients or customers that they have. So, what are you doing to actually make them stay? How would people describe you to others if they were asked about you? And are those people actually recommending and referring to your organization outside of conversations? So now, just to look at understanding this a little bit deeper, and we're going to pair it a little bit with what actually is helpful for each of these areas. So your discovery, as I mentioned, is how people are learning about what you offer. So if you cannot answer some of these questions I've listed for each of these sections, I definitely recommend taking some time to think about it, because your audience is not all audiences are on social media. Not even all of them are on Instagram and Facebook, and it's not just because of age groups or preferences. There are people that have a variety of different reasons why they're not on social media, or even the social medias that you're looking at. So how do people find out about me or my business? If you are not sure how people are finding out about you or your business, chances are people are not finding you if you're not sure about that. The other part too is if someone searched for what I offered, would I show up? And I love this part here because I recommend if you haven't, Google search your product or keywords or your business name or your name if you're marketing yourself, and see what is actually coming up when people are competing with you. A story that I like to share, not because it's great, but because it's very real. A number of years ago, there was a woman in New York, and she actually happens to share my name, Amy Cooper. She was doing some not great stuff, treating people not very kindly, to say the least. And so if you search Amy Cooper, a lot of other stuff comes up that has nothing to do with me. And so it's important that I recognize that that could show up if somebody, after my session or meeting me looked at that, because I want to make sure that they're finding the information I want. So that's why I branded myself as Studio Q Designs, Amy Q Cooper, kind of putting that together. And if you Google Amy Q Cooper, you find much more accurate and relevant information to what I do. So that's just an example I like to share on why it's important to know what's coming up. And again, are you visible where your ideal audience spends the most time? And again, that's not specifically social media. Are they showing up at gyms? Are they going to, certain particular restaurants or community events that are going on? Are they volunteering their time with organizations that align with their values? All of those types of things answer questions that you should have when it comes to deciding where you're going to spend your marketing efforts. So what actually supports discovery? So a variety of options include search engine optimization, or SEO, which I feel like is a huge buzzword for sure. And we're going to talk more about that. Your generative engine optimization, or GEO. This is going to your AI generated results. So I won't lie, I will have ChatGPT open on my phone at the grocery store, and sometimes I'm searching things that come up, or I'm asking about a product or something. That is AI choosing to search through information and make recommendations. So are you showing up for those? Social media, as we know, is a big one. Networking and general media coverage, so more traditional, maybe your news or radio. And then you actually have directories, and this is one that people forget to touch on a lot. So there are directories, and it's going to sound old, but there are yellow paged directories that do contribute to your overall visibility. So if you have not created a yellow page profile, it's free for the basic version. I definitely recommend checking that out, as well as Yelp. Again, kind of maybe some platforms of the past, it feels, but those do have really strong digital authority, we call it. And so by having profiles for your business or your organization on those, it's going to make a difference in discovery. So definitely recommend those. If you're in maybe more of a hospitality or restaurant business, things like TripAdvisor are also great as well. And all of those are locations people go to actually discover. That's where your target audience is, and that's where you'll want to be as well. So consideration, this next phase here, so it's really about the trust. I have countless instances where I have discovered a new website, whether it's for hotel deals or flight deals, and websites for products that I've never heard of, but I'm very interested in. And immediately my first search on Google is this product legit, or is this website legit? And I'm really making sure that if I'm going to pursue this any further, that I feel comfortable enough doing so. And so this is things like, did your website presence or your digital presence feel trustworthy to people? And that's not just about your website. Does it look modern, up to date? Is it functioning correctly? It's also if someone does Google, is such and such a product or website legit? What is coming up for that? Are people saying, I've never heard of this and there's no reviews? Or is a Google business profile popping up and it has a ton of different 5-star reviews? The other part is, have you communicated your experience or expertise? This is a big part that people forget as well. And sometimes it's very easy to forget that we do have expertise. A lot of people feel like they comment information that people know. At least I feel this way sometimes. I think, oh, that's ridiculous. Like everyone must know that already. But if you are working in any sort of industry, there's information that the general public does not. And I highly, highly encourage you to take steps to communicate with the public the information that you do know, because it's really going to help your expertise and experience. A great example of this that I shared recently with somebody, they are a professional photographer, and they were talking about social media content, kind of feeling like they kind of fell off a little bit on consistently posting. And something that we talked about was the idea of posting content that showed people how to pose. And a lot of people, I can definitely say I've looked back at photos of myself and I've gone, oh, why do I look like that? But really, what the gap is not people necessarily being happy with themselves, it's people who don't know how to pose. And how to pose yourself or other people is a form of expertise that a photographer has. And so our recommendation was to start posting some content to show the difference between knowing how to pose yourself and not, and how those photos can change. So if you're in an industry maybe like that, I recommend really showing through the experience and expertise that you have just to build that recognition. There are lots of people that have become, I'll say, famous or really popular on social media, not because they look like a supermodel or their products are sponsored by like the Kardashians or anything crazy. It's purely because they've established themselves as an expert, and that's really made a difference for them. The other part is, do I have trustworthy advocates? So who is actually, speaking about you? Are you associated with any particular organizations? Are you a part of sponsoring any local events? Who can actually speak for you? So in terms of tactics for this, what's helpful? So I did mention website. That is a big thing. While a lot of people are viewing information on social media, and a lot of businesses choose to not have a website and only social media, social media is not the place to go to if you are looking for longer form information to answer key questions that you have about an organization. People want to go to a website and scroll through and read and find out your shipping policies to where your products are made or manufactured, and that's not really the place on social media to continue to post that stuff or find it as easily. The other part, again, and a lot of these are free to do, posting case studies or testimonials. So talking about what you've done before that's worked really well and sharing examples of how this has made an actual impact. I love the order of, it's called, I think it's from Google, to be honest, it's the XYZ kind of flow. They use this as an example for students applying to Google on how to fill out their resume. But it's essentially explaining that I did X to achieve Y, which resulted in Z. And so that format is really great because it not only tells people what you did, but it also says, why did you do that? And what was the actual outcome that you had because of it? So if you were somebody that was working maybe in physiotherapy, it's saying, I worked with this patient, this was their situation, they had this issue and concern, this was their goal. I worked with them doing this to achieve, their full health back, and that resulted in a recovery time reduced of 2 weeks instead of 8 or whatever. So different kind of situations like that are really great to share online. You can do that on social media, but again, I recommend a website as a stationary place for that. Forums and community groups. So there are definitely a lot of Facebook groups, or if you're on Reddit in that world as well, a lot of people go to those because they appear a little bit more legitimate because you're getting an individual that is making the recommendations. So if you're going to a company's website and they have testimonials, you're kind of taking a wild guess that they probably picked those testimonials themselves. They probably wanted that to actually be shown to you. Whereas when you go into more Facebook groups or forums, things like Reddit, it's a little bit less of that type of a presentation because it's coming from individuals. And I can say as well, specifically for platforms like Reddit, if they find that people's profiles are usually overly promotional, they'll actually call them out and say, hey, you kind of sound like you're just promoting this and you didn't actually use this product. You're just a business owner. So again, Reddit and platforms like that are a great place to help with that. And just overall, any other kind of digital accounts that you have. So our decision-making phase, so making it easy to make that next step when they're actually ready to make a purchase. So the first thing is it easy to actually reach out to you, connect with you, get a quote, or make some sort of purchase online if you're selling products direct to consumer. That's a huge thing. There are so many times that I have just given up because I just can't figure out how to reach this person, or their website is just too inconvenient to use. I just can't be bothered. I don't have the time to try and figure that out. The other part as well is, are you actually addressing the concerns that people have? So if you are selling an actual product, have you taken that to people, maybe not just your friends, and ask them, what are your first questions that you have when I'm showing you this product? What would you ask if you were able to talk to the person that made this product, right? And you want to make sure you're addressing that, because it's going to just rapidly increase the speed in which they're going to make that decision and be able to make that purchase. So it's a really big important part in making the decisions as people go through. And then also, what are you being compared to? If you believe that you are the only person or business that can solve the problem your customers are experiencing, I highly recommend you take some more time and do some research. Your solution or product may be the best option in comparison to what is out there, but chances are people have been experiencing this problem for quite some time. And there are at least some, kind of half solution options that people are choosing, or, low bar options people have just kind of been accepting as a solution. So again, even though you may be clearly further ahead and an industry leader in what you're providing, you still need to know what's actually currently being used and how you can address the problems that those people are experiencing. And that really makes a big difference when you're talking about why people should actually be buying your product. You really want to speak to people's problems, not just the benefits they're going to get by just making a purchase. You really want to speak to them and what their thoughts are. So when you're in a decision-making stage like this, remember, this is the third one. This is further down in the process of the buyer journey. You're getting them closer to the point where they're ready to make a decision and actually buy. And when people are in a decision-making stage, they are often already ready and open to making that purchase. And so they're probably already looking for what you're offering them. So tactics that go well with that are things like your Google Ads, targeted landing pages that can be paired with your Google Ads. So landing pages are a website page that is separate from the main part of your website. Usually it's stripped down, and your home, your top navigation doesn't have like the home and all those different parts and pieces. And it's very, very tailored to a specific problem or concern or need that people are looking for online. And then you also have your reviews and testimonials that can, again, support that too. But a lot of people feel like Google Ads is a catch-all for all the parts of the buyer journey. But really, search ads at least, are running when someone is making a search and it's using keywords that are related to what your ads are targeting. So if people are already searching for what you're looking for, they're already in that decision-making stage. They're already going to need that. And so Google Ads help with that presentation of you being an option when people are already open to it. So in terms of loyalty, kind of this last one here, the one that, again, I always say people forget about. So it's turning your customers into lasting relationships and people who are actually going to say, you should check out this organization, you should work with this individual, they were really great. And I will say that when it comes to marketing, if you can master customer loyalty and relationships with people after they've, purchased your product or used your product or worked with you and your organization, you are going to see a lot more growth that's going to happen over time. I think it's, for most of us, it's safe to say that a lot of our sales are driven by word of mouth or personal recommendations. So if you can really harness marketing efforts that tailor to that, you're going to see a lot of benefits. So for instance, how are you connecting with people outside of the main experience that you have with them? And that includes both, in-person, digital, direct, indirect. How is that happening for people? Why would people possibly come back? I know some people, they work in an industry where it's a problem, like maybe they have like back pain, and that's why they're coming in to, like, say, a chiropractor or something like that. You're not obviously hoping that they continue to have back pain and that's the reason that they're going to come back to you. But what other reasons could you continue a relationship with them that's positive? And then it's also, how do I feel what you're offering people after their initial experience. So do you actually have feedback that you're getting from people after they've worked with you? And again, it's not just, did they leave us a Google review? It's actually wondering, what did they think about that and what opportunities do I have for improvement? So this part here, looking at things like your email newsletters, again, Email newsletters are kind of a careful one there. You don't want to send people too many newsletters, as I wake up and I delete so many that are useless. Is how can you stand out from that? But they can have a significant impact. Your loyalty and referral programs, again, we tend to not think about that as something that's marketing, but it is. You're selling yourself, you're trying to build relationships with customers, really nail home that brand recognition, brand loyalty. And the other part, community events, engagement. How are you involved with things that are maybe not directly related to your products or services, but definitely in the world that your customers or clients are living in? How are you participating in that? And any other special benefits. So sometimes you are a part of a program, you get special tickets to things or special access, discounts, deals, stuff like that as well. So we've gone through a lot of those, and I know it's a lot of information to hear at once, but just before we go into kind of the application here, a big thing I just wanted to emphasize is that before you can really understand your buyer journey that you're working through and where you want to have your marketing efforts focused, you need to understand your audience, your offering, and your current situation. So it's not just, my audience is women under the age of 35 who have children. Like, that's one part of it, but there are so many other parts of that person's life that have led them to needing your product or service. And so you need to figure out what that looks like. The other part is offering. So figuring out, what are you actually selling to people? So sometimes we get people that want to run Google Ads because they think everyone's looking for my service. I know 100% they're going to click on these ads and they're going to love it, but their service is over $1,000. And so because of that, if their service is over $1,000, let's say it's also a personal service, like some sort of doctor or medical process, something like that, people are not just going to click on your ad and then say, oh, this is exactly what I'm looking for. Here's my money, and book my appointment. So you need to figure out the nuances about what you're offering so you can figure out a little bit better how people are thinking when they're making that decision. So in that case, your Google Ads might help get you that initial discovery, but you need additional measures in place to actually support people during that consideration and during that discovery phase. They might find your ad, but they're going to look you up after, and they're going to look for further information, whether through news or social media platforms or reviews and other directories. And the last part here, be honest about your current situation with what you can work with. Do you actually have a budget that you can spend for things like Google Ads that cannot have a $0 budget? Even if you master how to run Google Ads, you have to pay a fee to Google. They unfortunately won't take it any other way. And what do you currently have? What audience or team members or skills do you have that you can actually leverage to use in your marketing? I think a lot of people tend to feel like they have no budget and they have no options. But honestly, if you have an internet connection, you have a phone, or you have a computer, or even if you just have some friends or some free time to go to an event, there's a lot that can be there that can work together for your marketing. Okay, so just as we go into this part here, I really just want to show back here the buyer journey, and that's discovery, consideration, decision, and loyalty phases. So really think about right now, where do you feel like you fit in here? Where do you feel like is most important to focus on based on where your business or yourself, where you're at? But the other part is there any of these areas you actually have not been thinking about at all? Because it could actually be the area that you need to go through and actually make an impact when it comes to your marketing. Okay, so this part I'm going to need a little bit audience participation. If not, that's okay, because I have some examples. But I would love to have somebody share about maybe what they're currently working on or trying to achieve when it comes to their marketing. So I've got a column here that says business information, kind of what stage are you at? What are you trying to, who are you trying to target? What are you selling? Do you have a budget for this? How comfortable are you with marketing? Have you actually, tried anything yourself, or are you at a completely new stage? How that feels. So I'm not sure if, and I haven't looked at the chat, so Shaylin, I'm not sure if there's any questions that have come in, but feel free if anyone wants to share or be used, I guess, as an example to kind of walk through. And What we're going to walk through is talking about the buyer journey and actually giving specific examples of marketing tactics that I would recommend you consider for your business based on those answers. So it is a little bit of a benefit to you if you do want to share, but if not, I've got some great examples as well. So I'm not sure if anyone is, I don't know, Shaylin, if you can see if people are typing or not, but otherwise I'll carry on. Oh, yes. Okay, I'm seeing no hand raising, which is totally okay. Shaylin, if I miss anybody though, please chime in. Oh, okay, perfect. Alrighty, so the example that I'm going to use is a client that we have, and they are based in Quebec. They sell fertilizer for gardens and farms, and they are a Canadian Quebec-based company, and they've got a really amazing audience and demographic. Their sales are really great, but only specifically among French speakers and in the province of Quebec. So they are an established organization. They have been in business for over 30 years. Their target audience is anyone who's growing, so backyard gardeners, hobby farmers, large-scale growers. They are, as I mentioned, offering a variety of vast fertilizer products that can be used for different purposes, whether planting specific or different type of soil types. And they are comfortable with marketing in that they have a team of people that can support, but they do not have the resources to really execute it themselves. They don't have a whole marketing department. And so they brought our team on to support them with their marketing efforts. And in terms of their goals, their specific goals actually were to branch out in Ontario among English speakers. So they wanted to grow their presence with their existing product line in Ontario and specifically attract more of an English-speaking audience, because a lot of their content online is great, but it is in French, and so it's not really reaching or resonating with people that don't speak French. So that is just for context. That's where we were at with that client, and we've also been working with them for about 3 years now as well. So in terms of the buyer journey, where they fit in, while in Quebec, they were not in that discovery phase. They are actually in that discovery phase for people in Ontario because people just don't really know about them. At the same time, the other part that we focused on was the decision-making stage. And the reason for that is because their products technically are already sold in some of the stores in Ontario. They are on the product shelves with all your different options, but they're not necessarily the decision that people are going with. We chose to focus a little bit less on consideration because they have been around for such a long time. Anything that they looked up online, they would see that they're a legitimate company and have a long-standing history of research back information. And loyalty, again, we're really focusing on that new market, new audience part. So not as much of a priority at the moment. We weren't really focusing on their Quebec customers. So in terms of how we went through and we worked on this with them, one of the tactics that I mentioned is kind of content and publishing. So these are things like your case studies, your newsletters, your blogs and articles, testimonials and reviews, professional accounts. This was not as much at the forefront, again, because they did have an established presence already when it came to the consideration. But something we did work with them on was blogs and articles. Now, there's a lot of debate in the marketing world about blogs and articles because of things like AI being able to go through and, you can kind of say, hey, write me an article about this and it can be done. But there is still worthwhile efforts that can, reap some sort of results when you're talking about blogs and articles. And there's specific formats that you can do that are preferred and favored by particularly artificial intelligence when you're getting those generative results. So a big thing for GEO or generative engine optimization is how the content is actually written out and organized. It's your bulleted list. It's your asking questions like, what is this supposed to be doing? Or what's the best, product for this? Tailoring your content to be written in such a way that people speak to AI will actually have it favor your content more in recommendations for its output. So something to keep in mind. So we did actually regularly have blogs/articles that were coming out related to helping people with their home gardening. So SEO and GEO, which I just kind of touched on as well. So this is your keywords that you're using, metadata. So this is actually not usually what you can visually see on a website, but it's all the technical language that's used in behind, such as your file names, your alternative text that you use for images. You've got your backlinks and page authority. So how are other websites referring to you? That builds your presence. And things like site speed, mobile friendliness, and overall content layout. So this is not something that we particularly focused on as much, and that's just because they already had a website and they already had people that were working on that. A big thing that I want to emphasize here is that SEO and GEO are great and they're worth looking at, but they are not going to get you immediate results. SEO and GEO are playing the long game. You are looking at over time building your credibility and favorability with search engines. If you are only doing SEO and you're trying to get new sales, it's going to be a long time before you're really going to see that conversion happening, especially if you are a newer business. So again, we didn't really focus on this that much, but I just want to mention it here because it is kind of a big buzzword. SEO is changing again with AI. If you Google anything, you get your silly AI results before your search links sometimes, but it's still worthwhile looking at. Social media. So here we've got all these different platforms here. I really encourage people to think about their audience. And so for this client in particular, social media was a big part of our work that we did for them. So we focused on Instagram and Facebook. We did not focus on TikTok or X, Twitter, Threads, any of kind of the more text-based ones. And that's mostly because of our target audience that we had and also our available resources. We don't have a whole team that's going on site to this company or on site traveling to all these gardens that we can make like TikTok videos for. TikToks are like a video focused platform. The other part is engaging with the platform or engaging with the community. So specifically commenting, building relationships online. I like to think of it as while we are maybe tagging or engaging with social media accounts for other businesses or partners that might relate to us, it's still at the end of the day, there's a person that is online that is logging into the platform, and it's just one person, and they're looking at what kind of content's been going online. They have the responsibility of promoting their own social media and creating growth. And so if you think about it like that, there's another person on that end, communicating with them, supporting their posting content, collaborating on content. That is definitely worthwhile. We also ran influencer campaigns. So we had paid people to create some content specifically for us to help us as well. And also you can, do your boosting posts and so on and so forth. I know there's going to be a lot of questions probably about social media. And so I do want to leave time at the end here for people to ask those specific ones. So I'm going to keep moving through the different topics, but definitely if you have questions more about social media, let us know. My biggest recommendation coming down to your content, you can go for the viral video that's going to get you, your few moments of fame. But what people actually need is a reason to follow you. If you are giving them a really entertaining post, that's great. They're going to go to your profile, see who you are. And if your content does not look like they want to be seeing that every day, it's not useful or helpful or interesting or delightful, we like to say, you're not going to get that conversion. They're going to see your viral post and then carry on and forget about you. So it's really about building that strong foundation of consistency and showing people that if they get to your profile, this is worthwhile, whether it's through tips or education, recommendation, or humor, or whatever it is. There's a variety of reasons why people follow, and you need to figure that out, what you want to use for yourself. Last part here, Google Ads. So again, you can run ads. You pay a fee to Google for each click that somebody clicks on your ads. And if you're not running them yourself, you're typically paying a fee towards somebody running them for you, like an agency as well. So different options here of how they show up. If you've ever Googled anything, you've probably seen them a million different times. This is examples of some of the ads that we did for this fertilizer company in general. And there's a lot of different ways that Google Ads work, but carry on here just to kind of make sure we get to the end here. Offline ads, so not as popular, and they do tend to cost a lot more money up front because you're not working on those digital platforms. But billboards or print ads, audio ads or radio or Spotify even, they're still worthwhile for particular types of people that are running some sort of product or service that's related to those types of listeners or viewers. So definitely still worthwhile. I mean, I can't say everyone finds their real estate agent by seeing them on a bus ad, but obviously there are people out there that are still finding that that's useful for them. So, we get a lot of people that come in for physical ads too. For this client in particular, you'll see a little mock-up here of newspaper. There are a lot of different, I don't know, I guess like articles or little news groups that are targeted towards farmers and garden growers. So we specifically ran an ad that was tailored to farmers in Ontario, and there was a promo code where if they called to place an order, they would get a discount. And that not only attracted the farmers and was in a place where they were looking, but we knew that every time that promo code was placed, that was because of our advertisement. And so that's a really great way to easily measure success for where all your different marketing efforts are going, which ones are kind of the most worthwhile. So we've made it to the end here. I want to leave a good chunk of time here for any questions. I know I've talked about a lot of different things here, but I really just want to drill it down here. If you have no idea where to start, if this is absolutely overwhelming and now you feel more confused about what you're supposed to do, I recommend starting here. First of all, know your purpose. What do you actually want to be known for? What do you want people to say about you or your products or services? How should they describe you? And of course, define your audience. So again, who are you trying to connect with? What is unique about these people? Where are they going? What are they interested in? Who are they supporting? Who are they following? And your actual messaging. This part is really important. Strategy is a big bulk of it because you need to be able to create and track progress. But at the end of the day, and I'll show on this last slide here, your messaging is really what's going to drill it home. So your repeat messaging, what will you actually share to connect with your audience? And repeat messaging in particular can be very strong, whether it's as simple as, come to this event or check out our product, it's seen everywhere, or it's actually, a little bit more in depth and related to people speaking to their problems or personalities. A great example of repeat messaging for me is the show Severance. When the second season came out, I think I saw Severance ads basically every single place that I looked on the internet and in person and in malls. And eventually I said, if they're spending this much money on all this advertisement, they must really want me to watch the show. And maybe this is actually pretty good. I do like the show Severance now, but I think it's an interesting example of, again, that repeat messaging of like, okay, come on, like I see you're trying to get me here. Just kind of taking that dive and making that decision. So again, I've got buyer journey here, but I'm just going to skip over it. So this is the part that I really want people to focus on is with the buyer journey, marketing is what is amplifying your brand. Strategic alignment is what's going to make it powerful. So if you do not have a brand, if you do not have your messaging, core foundation parts of that, it's going to be really, really difficult to have successful marketing. But that paired with your strategy, looking at things like your buyer journey, your tactics, that is what's going to make all the difference. And that's where you're really going to feel like your efforts are worthwhile. I don't know if some people maybe came to this presentation thinking that I was going to tell them what time of day to post on social media, how many times to go on TikTok, and how many times to share on Instagram. But marketing is not a mathematical equation because you are unique, your product's unique, your experiences, your customers, they're all so unique. And so there's some benefits to kind of creating a science to it. But it really, really comes down to how you are building this for yourself and specifically for yourself. So that is my presentation on cutting the noise. I really appreciate everyone listening through everything. I can't see everybody, so I'm hoping it's like internal, maybe head nods of yes, that makes sense. And, that gives me a place to start. But yeah, Shaylin, maybe I'll hand it over to you.
Yeah, thank you. It looks like you're getting a lot of like applauses and thumbs up. So it looks like
Thank you so much.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Amy. Now we'll open it up to Q&A. There is a Q&A tab beside the chat, but I do see there's a couple questions coming in right in the chat. So we can get started with those ones. Mohammed has a question, and I'm just going to summarize it a little bit.
Yes.
So it looks like they're interested to know how to overcome the challenge of entering the market for the first time as a service business owner. Mm-hmm. So summarized, he's looking to prepare himself to start their own business, but how do I get a customer's attention or trust considering I'm new to market?
I'm just finished reading the full message here just so I can give a solid response. I appreciate that from you for everyone else as a summary. Yeah, so adding some skills, that's great. Looking to start your own services. Point is, how do I get customers' attention or trust considering I'm new in the market? Yes, so I am a service-based business. 100% Studio Q works remotely. I don't really think we sell anything that's technically like a product that people are holding onto and purchasing and walking away with. So the tough part with a service-based business is that you're not just needing people to buy, you're asking people to experience. And so they're paying for this experience that technically, they could get other places. Actually, I'll stop sharing here. I think you just made me bigger here. Perfect. Yeah, so when you're first starting out, I'm going to also assume you don't have like $1 million budget to go through and work through those marketing initiatives. Honestly, this may be an unpopular opinion for marketing agencies who want your money. Your biggest secret weapon is you. Figure out who you are, and when you meet people and you walk away from them, what do you want them to feel and think about you? I have received a plethora of business cards. I have experienced many of, hi, I do roofing. Would you like my business card? And the conversation was nothing. I don't remember those people. I just remember thinking, like, you didn't ask anything about me. We have no relationship. You don't even know that I don't have a house to buy a roof for. Like, it's there's a lot of marketing strategies in here that are great. You can focus on your social media and have a digital presence. I think that's really good. Have a one-page website people can go to if they Google you. Have a good LinkedIn profile if you're connecting with people online that looks legitimate. You can have social media accounts that have a few photos and a few followers, but if you're not going to spend time on it, I don't think you need to do that now. But really, it's your marketing of yourself in person. What are you giving people when you see them? If you're a service-based business, I'm going to take a wild guess that you probably have some expertise or knowledge that you could share with them. Instead of just giving them a business card, give them a little 4x6 double-sided info card about what you're offering and what problems people might be experiencing, and how your solution actually, combats that. So maybe a more physical in-person marketing strategy, but I think in terms of cost and worthwhile, that's going to be the most impactful. And just keep showing up at these different events, build relationships with people, the people that already have established networks. If you can build honest, genuine connections with them, they are going to be the ones that are going to advocate for you for that. So I hope that is helpful.
Yeah, so it's a very thorough answer. Thank you. The next one, Jenica asked, do you have any tips in particular for leveraging LinkedIn as a platform? I second this one. I find LinkedIn so overwhelming. I don't understand the algorithm. It never posts things in order. I see stuff for events that happened like a month ago, and it was like, would have been great if that showed up a month ago in my feed.
Yeah. I'll be brutally honest. On a personal note, I have a hard time with LinkedIn.
Okay.
I love very dearly all my, friends, coworkers, team members that post regularly on LinkedIn, and they have nailed the hook and the story. And then I click and I read more, and I'm reading now, like, for 5 minutes, this whole synopsis of their Saturday afternoon at a coffee shop. Like, I give them all the credit for doing that. But I do find that when you post content like that, if you're kind of imagining the content I'm talking about, most of the people that engage with that are people you already know that are like, oh, that's so nice. I read that the other day, and I'm so glad that Amy had such a wonderful, enlightening experience on a Saturday afternoon. Or it is people that are trying to connect with you, but maybe aren't able to actually market or help you. Like, they're also kind of in the early stages of, I'm trying to meet people and make friends, and this is my way is engaging on LinkedIn. So I find that part of it really, really tough. Our recommendation for LinkedIn is definitely have it as a strong profile for a business where there's the credibility aspect. That's a huge part. And there's obviously the hiring component. If you're hiring or growing to your team, that's interesting. But I think a lot of it is news and updates and events, things that are going on that are worthwhile sharing to keep people in the know. The other part I will say that I do find is really successful is video content on LinkedIn that is more professional. So we have one client that we're doing marketing for, and most of our clients we do marketing for, they want Facebook and Instagram. But this client actually in particular, their sole focus is only growth on LinkedIn. We're posting on other accounts, but their sole focus is on LinkedIn. And for them in particular, what's most useful is they are a clean tech sustainability engineering type firm. It's a very, very complex subject matter. And so using LinkedIn as a way to break it down in like video form content or simple text-based content that breaks down information that appeals to potential partners or investors, but maybe don't speak that language, I find that is a really great part for it as well. So I'm not sure what industry you're in. I don't know if you want to comment on if it's personal or for a business, but there are definitely some benefits that way depending on the type of content that you write. But I won't lie, in terms of personal, I maybe it's just my own imposter syndrome, but I feel silly like writing a long form LinkedIn post, and it just doesn't feel authentic to me. I think that's the part is post stuff that feels authentic to you. And I will say some people I know, when they post updates on what they're working on, they will share like, oh, I just completed this project for such and such an organization. I'm looking for more people who would be interested in this, or I'm looking for people who are also experiencing this problem. That's a really great way to frame it, because you'll get people that say, oh, yes, actually, you should connect with so-and-so. They told me the other day they're having issues with their website or something. So kind of giving people more of a prompt and opportunity. Again, that's still speaking to like what people internally are thinking.
I think even like thinking of it more as a networking platform, which is what it's supposed to be, right? So that totally makes sense. You're building the relationships that way.
Yeah.
More than just promotions, which I think we're starting to see a lot more of too on like Instagram, becoming more commercial. Okay. Wonderful. Well, we're actually right at 1:00. So that was wonderful. Thank you everybody for joining us. Thank you so much, Amy, for sharing all your expertise and recommendations. I really hope everybody has some great takeaways from the presentation. Now I'm going to return everybody back to your tables. The doors are going to stay open for another 15 minutes, so you're welcome to stay and network with each other. And then Marie has popped some links in the chat if you want to connect with Amy or find out more about Q Studios. And yeah, thank you so much for coming today.
Yeah, thank you so much. And if you're interested in Manitoba Tech Week, we're running that co-op build a video game with the power of play. So definitely check it out and feel free to connect with me. I'm always happy to chat.
Wonderful. Thank you.
Okay, thanks.